Shalom à tous et bienvenue dans cette nouvelle émission. Aujourd'hui, nous allons plonger dans un sujet passionnant, celui du calendrier du Créateur. Et pour notre part, et après une longue recherche sur le sujet, il est devenu évident que celui qui remplit la fonction est bel et bien le calendrier d'Enoch, aussi appelé le calendrier Zadokite, ou encore celui des Jubilés, fondé sur l'année de 364 jours. On le dit solaire, mais vous allez voir que pour ce faire, on va utiliser tous les luminaires. Et si vous avez écouté les conférences de Rachel Elior que j'ai traduites, vous savez que ce calendrier originaire des générations antédiluviennes et transmis par les prêtres justes a été conservé jusqu'à l'époque du Second Temple et retrouvé parmi les manuscrits de Qumran. Il est au cœur d'une compréhension juste des Moadim, les rendez-vous fixés par Yahweh. Contrairement au système lunaire ou mixte, ce cycle repose sur la lumière, sur le mouvement du soleil et les marques que le Créateur a établies dans les cieux pour les signes, les temps fixés, les jours et les années, comme le dit Genèse 1,14. Et donc pour tous ceux qui marchent dans la voie d'observer les instructions de Yahweh, nous avons conscience qu'il est essentiel d'observer ces fêtes éternelles selon l'ordre qu'il a établi. Et la plupart d'entre nous se tournent naturellement vers le calendrier solaire énochien, mais la grande question demeure, comment déterminer le commencement de l'année? C'est bien là qu'est le cœur de la question pour ceux qui cherchent à retrouver le calendrier du Créateur. Alors on va vous présenter notre façon de faire en vous expliquant pourquoi. Et nous allons aujourd'hui explorer ces fondements avec une invitée toute spéciale, une sœur des États-Unis engagée dans la voie thoraïque, chercheuse et observatrice passionnée du ciel. Ces travaux approfondis l'ont conduite à démontrer pourquoi il est essentiel de prendre en compte l'équilux, ce moment où le jour et la nuit sont de durée égale, et d'autres indicateurs de l'horloge céleste pour identifier le début véritable de l'année selon la Torah. Et avec elle, nous parlerons de plusieurs aspects concrets et spirituels, du Shabbat du 7e jour, qui n'a jamais été interrompu depuis la création, de l'usage de l'astrolabe dans la recherche de terrain, de la méthode pour déterminer l'équinoxe et reconnaître l'année Gamul, l'année Shemittah, qui est différente, du sujet sensible de la prétendue précession des équinoxes, et on a un scoop à ce sujet qui est absolument épatant, et avis aux adeptes de l'ère du Verseau, restez avec nous pour lâcher une autre fausse croyance, et si on a le temps, nous explorerons les indices scripturaires, parfois dissimulés à nos yeux modernes, qui confirment le calendrier des prêtres Zadokim. C'est un échange que je souhaitais profondément parce que Tina allie observation, recherche et foi, et tout ceci nous aide à mieux comprendre pourquoi nous commençons l'année comme nous le faisons, en prenant l'équilux et la pointe vernale en bélier, dans le respect du cycle établi dès le commencement. Alors installez-vous confortablement si cette question vous anime, et elle devrait. Ouvrez grand vos oreilles et entrons ensemble dans cette exploration du temps selon Yahweh. L'entretien se fera en anglais, mais rassurez-vous, je traduirai en français pour que chacun puisse bien suivre et profiter de cet échange, que Yahweh, par son souffle de vérité, continue de nous inspirer et de nous unir, qu'il permette que nous soyons nombreux à redécouvrir les fondements justes qu'il a placés dans sa création, afin que nous puissions nous harmoniser et célébrer ensemble les Moadim dans l'unité et la joie. J'ai personnellement été bluffée par la qualité des recherches que Tina partage sur sa chaîne The Fight for Truth, son sérieux, sa clarté, son engagement dans la recherche de la vérité et au nom de Yah. Elle est dans l'entendement de la cosmologie biblique, c'est-à-dire firmamentale, plane et stationnaire, avec les luminaires qui tournent au-dessus de nous, ce qui est notre position ici sur la chaîne. Alors surtout, n'hésitez pas à vous abonner à sa chaîne pour approfondir ces sujets, à vous abonner à Inspirations Natsarim également. Cela faisait longtemps que je voulais acquérir un Astrolabe pour faire mes propres observations. Et c'est en découvrant son contenu si instructif que j'ai été motivée à franchir le pas, et je ne suis vraiment pas déçue. Thank you, Tina, for being with us to share your knowledge. Thank you, sister. It's an honor. You take the floor.
Well, I'll start by saying that everything that I present today can cause a lot of confusion. It can cause people to get angry at each other, and the bringing up of the calendar is not to cause division, but to help to build each other up. And over the last few years of following the Torah, I have followed two different calendars. And each time I have followed a different calendar, I have questions. And those questions cause me to seek more information. And while I will never say that I am exactly correct, I will say that I feel that I'm on the right path, and I don't ask for anybody to follow what I'm doing. I ask people to seek it for themselves. And if you don't seek it for yourself, then you're just being a follower, and we are called to be leaders. And I know that not everyone has the time to look into these things and to get things like the Astrolabe. I don't know if it's even showing, but it's a way to look into things and to prove whether we are telling the truth or not, because I don't want to spread lies or misinformation or to lead anybody on a different path. My goal is to find the things that are in the skies and put them all together. And so today I have put a lot of my past information together, and we might not cover everything. So if you remember a question that someone may have, let me know.
I
So
will.
yeah, so I'll show my screen. Does it show? You'll need to show it up. There we go. Okay. So a lot of people come into finding the Torah, and one of the first things we do is we want to celebrate the Sabbath. So that's where we start. And today, the church, a lot of the Christian church out there is telling us that we should observe a Sunday Sabbath, but they don't even observe it the way we are taught in scriptures. So my goal is to share with everyone out there that the Sabbath has never changed. It's only people who've made it into something that it isn't. We need to understand that originally the Sabbath was on Saturday, and it was the Catholic Church that instituted keeping Sabbath on a Sunday. And then if you didn't do that, you were either sent away, ostracized, or even killed. And so we need to understand that there were people who were killed for keeping the Sabbath on Saturday. And so I'm going to show a few things. We know that the fourth commandment tells us to remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. It's the only commandment that tells us to remember. And that is key because he wants to bring us back into remembrance. He hasn't hidden the Sabbath for 2,000 years. It isn't on a Tuesday. It isn't on a Thursday. People were killed for keeping it on Saturday when the Roman Catholic influence came. So we need to step back and find out how scriptures align with the Saturday Sabbath keeping, the seventh day. He didn't hide it from us. And I'm going to show you breadcrumbs that he left behind. First of all, when looking into the Saturday Sabbath, I've heard a lot of people tell me that that the days have changed, that the Romans not only changed the Sabbath from Saturday to Sunday, but they changed the days of the week. And that brought me to look into things, and I researched and I found quite a few interesting pieces of information, but what I didn't find was that the days of the week were changed. And here are some quotes from them One was from Dr. Totten, a professor at Yale University. He says the human race never lost the septenary, or the seventh day sequence of weekdays, and that the Sabbath of the later times comes down to us from Adam through the ages without a single lapse. That means it has never been changed. The 7 days have never been changed. Dr. Lyman Coleman says 7 has been the ancient and honored number among the nations of the earth. They have measured their time by weeks from the beginning. The origin of this was the Sabbath of Elohim, and as Moses has given the reasons for it in his writings. And then the last one says, it can be said with assurance that not a day has been lost since creation, and all the calendar changes notwithstanding, there has been no break in the weekly cycle. I have never found anywhere that it was changed, that the only thing they changed was the name of the days. They used to be the day 1, the first day of the week, day 2, the second day of the week. They only had numbers. They didn't have names. The Romans gave them names, but they didn't change the order. And they were named after gods.
Yes, and I was gonna say we can add a fourth one. Excuse me. Do you know Jabez Bunting Dimbleby? He was a chronologist astronom. Sorry, he was a chronologist astronomist, and in his calculation of the cycles of time, he went to the same conclusion that the 7-day week, 7-day cycle had never been broken, just by looking at the cycles of the luminaries.
Right. They've never changed. Yes,
Yeah.
that's another thing for sure. Another key component is the word Sabbath. If you look at all of these different languages, Sabado in Spanish, Italian, Sabato, and I know that French is a little different, but all of the other ones sound like the word Sabbath. They didn't use the key phrase that the Romans gave it, which was Saturday or after Saturnalia. It was always meant to be the seventh day of rest. If you take a look right here, it means rest, day of rest. And that has only ever been associated with the seventh day, what we know as Saturday. Nothing else has ever been called a day of rest. So that is our breadcrumb, another breadcrumb. And I'm going to show you a lot more today. But again, even the words that are being used doesn't have anything to do with Saturnalia. It has to do with the key word, the root word of Sabbath, rest. Yeah. And then I know that I have been really digging into the Dead Sea Scrolls, and I am so amazed at what I've learned. And I'll show a few of those things today, but one of the main key phrases here in this particular one, called the Damascus document, states that we start our Sabbath on the 6th day in the evening, and it goes until the 7th day. So this also helps to confirm. So these are ancient documents that have been hidden for a very long time, but they have a lot of answers in them, and it matches what we are learning in scriptures as well. Today, I wanted to also show you about seventh-day Sabbath keepers throughout history. I have a link, and if anyone ever wants to click on that or write that down.
Very good link.
It is a very...
I was working on it last night. So.
Yeah. So it starts back with the disciples, and it goes all the way into our
20th century.
20th century. Yeah. And there are quotes that have been in books and written on stones. There are quotes on papyri that have shown us through the ages all those people who stood up to keep the seventh day Sabbath, rest day, as our Sabbath, not a Tuesday or a Wednesday, not a shifting day, but every person in there were people who were Sabbath keepers on the Saturday. And a lot of those quotes you will also find how they were punished or killed because of keeping that seventh day Sabbath. So I find that is a very important place to go. It's a website that was created from a Seventh Day Adventist person who put all of this together. But again, it's very informative that they didn't die for a Tuesday. So I don't want to repeat too many times, but this is evidence throughout the centuries that it was always one day. And I also took a few of those quotes to show you today. Since I have a French audience, I thought I would bring in a few of those quotes just specifically for France. In the 12th century, it says, referring to keeping, there was a group of people called the Passagini, and they were people, the Passagini is another root word for passage or the way. So these were people who were keeping the way. And it says the spread of heresy at that time is almost incredible. From Bulgaria to the Ebro, from northern France to the Tiber, everywhere we meet them. Whole countries are infested, like Hungary and southern France. So in your area, they were infested. That means they had so many people keeping Sabbath. And they abound in many other countries, in Germany and Italy and the Netherlands, even in England. They put forth their efforts. So they were spreading out. And here is another quote talking about Peter de Brézé stirred up southern France. He especially emphasized the day of worship that was recognized at the time among the Celtic churches of the British Isles, among the Paulicians, and in the great church of the East, namely the seventh day of the fourth commandment. So specifically, they were keeping the seventh day.
Yeah. Basically, all of these quotes, they show that they put so many efforts to not make them keep the Saturday Sabbath. So, I mean, if they had changed the calendar for at the start of the year, they wouldn't bother doing that. I think for me, this is really telling.
Right. Right. Yes. If it has been changed, they wouldn't be going, it wouldn't matter. They would be all doing the same calendar. But these people were stepping out and keeping their true commandments. And then I just have more through the 13th century. We see more in France, the Crusaders, coming and killing people who were not keeping their Sabbath. The Inquisitors, it talks about the Inquisitors and the Crusades, the Romans coming after those who were trying to keep the Sabbath. The Catholic leaders called them heretics. And it says, slay them all, for the Lord knows who is his. This is the history of the Inquisition. This is a book that was published about the Inquisition. So even in the 13th century. So this, again, those quotes are from the disciples all the way through till now. And it shows that there is a remnant of people throughout every generation. And then I have one from the 15th century with King Louis XII, King of France. He's being informed by the enemies of the Waldenses. So the Waldenses, just like the Passaginis, were another group of Sabbath keepers. And King Louis heard about this group of people inhabiting a part of the province of Provence, that several heinous crimes were laid to their account, and he sent the master of requests, a certain doctor of, you might know these
La
words,
Sorbonne.
Okay, to make inquiry into this matter. On their return, they reported that they had visited all the parishes, but could not discover any traces of those crimes which they were charged, because they're being told that they're bad. They're bad people for keeping a different calendar. But they couldn't find any evidence that they were doing anything wrong. It says, on the contrary, they kept the Sabbath day, observed the ordinance of baptism according to the primitive church, instructed their children in the articles of Christian faith and the commandments of God. The king, having heard this report of the commissioners, said with an oath that they were better men than himself or his people. So I find that very interesting that the king even thought, well, they're doing fine. They're not doing anything wrong necessarily. They're actually good people. And obviously they're following the commandments. And another thing that I found through the scriptures was that Yeshua was attacked for everything he did, for healing on the Sabbath. I have in Matthew 9, he was just eating with sinners. He was accused of that. He was accused in Luke of not washing his hands before eating. He was accused in Matthew for his disciples not fasting. He was also accused of plucking on the Sabbath from the field. He was accused of casting out demons on the Sabbath, and he was accused of healing on the Sabbath. But guess what he was not accused of doing? He was not accused of keeping a different Sabbath. He wasn't accused of keeping the wrong day. The Pharisees would have mentioned it, you would think. They would have mentioned if he was celebrating his feast or Sabbath day on a Tuesday.
Yeah,
They
sure.
would have said, you're not doing that right. But they never did, because Yeshua kept the same Sabbath day and the hours that the Pharisees were keeping, because they at least had that correct. So he didn't get in trouble for that. They didn't accuse him. So we know that Yahusha was keeping the correct Sabbath.
Yep, the master of the Sabbath.
Mm-hmm. Oh, did you have something that you wanted to say?
No, I'm fine. You can go.
So all of this information brings me to try to figure out why our Gregorian calendar doesn't fit, why the lunar calendars don't fit, what fits, what is the original calendar, what are we missing? We already know that the months, even the names of the months, I did not look it up in French, but in English, the 7th month is called September. And so September, the sept, S-E-P-T, stands for 7. And October stands for 8, for O-C-T. And so even the months are confused. And so my goal is to figure out what we have right and what we have wrong. And we want to follow his Sabbaths and his feast days. And so about 2 years ago, I started looking more into the calendar, but more specifically into the stars. I'm very unfamiliar with the stars, but I have recently found that the stars tell the story of the Father's calendar. And I'm going to show you a little bit about what I have found. And before following the Zadok calendar that I have currently, I did follow 2 different calendars, but each calendar I found some issues with. And so I thought to myself, again, I didn't want to just follow someone else's calendar. So I began to seek it out for myself, and I bought a book, and it was called Gospel in the Stars, or there's also another one called, I can't think of what it's called, but they all tell the story of the different zodiacs, or it's called Mazzaroths, the different constellations in the sky. And as a child and a young believer, I was told not to look at the stars. Don't look into the zodiacs because that's evil. That's something you should stay away from. But when you realize that it's the Father's creation and he has some story to tell us, that we need to look back up. And I read a lot of stories in Scripture of people going out and looking up at the stars. And the stars, the sun, the moon, and the stars are all mentioned all over Scripture. And they tell us a story. And once I realized and started learning about the 12 zodiacs, I started to learn that each month is associated with the zodiacs. And again, people might say that, oh, well, that's astrology and horoscopes. No, actually, it originated with the Father. A lot of things that we are told are pagan probably might have a connection with something the Father created, just like the rainbow. The rainbow has a bad connotation today, but originally it was our covenant promise. The Father gave us the rainbow first. And so,
Let's take back the rainbow, huh?
Yeah, I started to look into the zodiacs and the signs. So let's take a look here. I learned, and again, I'm just taking you through the process of me learning. I learned that Aries, with the sign of the ram, is what begins the year. And Josephus is talking here, and it says, this is Antiquities, and it says, "For they call the ram the head of the zodiac, since in it the sun appears to produce the vernal equinox." So even Josephus mentions that the year begins with Aries. The spring equinox begins with Aries. And there's another gentleman by the name of Anatolius, and this is in the Nicene and post-Nicene Fathers, and it says, "Wherefore we maintain that those who place the first month in it the zodiacal sign before the vernal equinox and determine by it the 14th day of Passover." So we know when Passover comes because we wait for that equinox. So it says they commit no sight or common blunder, and that is not an opinion of our own, but it was known to the Jews of old, even before Messiah, and was carefully observed by them. And we know today that the Jews can actually sometimes have celebrated their Passover before the vernal equinox, or even started their year before the vernal equinox. And when I looked up the Encyclopedia Britannica, it talked about the first point of Aries is the location of the March equinox, used as a reference point in the celestial coordinate system. So keeping in mind that out of all 12 of the zodiacs, the ram or Aries holds the vernal equinox. So we're going to keep that in mind as we go further. The Father has a sky clock, and if you imagine that they go around us, right? So this is his sky clock. Now, something interesting, I know that you found this interesting, that they try to hide things from us, and they're telling us that the year begins now in Pisces. They tell us that there was a precession of the stars, and I find that very ridiculous because that's not correct. And we have even Josephus telling us way back then that it began in Aries, and it hasn't changed.
Yeah, this is absolutely amazing because what I find is that there are many spiritualities that are based on a false cosmology. And this era of Aquarius, how would you say?
Yeah.
L'ère du Verseau.
Age of Aquarius, yeah.
And long cycles and, Kali Yuga and stuff. And all of this is based on a wrong cosmology.
It is.
And if you can prove to yourself what Tina is going to show us, si vous allez pouvoir vous prouver à vous-même ce que Tina va vous montrer avec l'Astrolabe, c'est fantastique. Just a little...
That's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, parce qu'en fait, bon là, I couldn't do my observations since I've got my astrolabes because we've got clouds at night. So at the moment for us, it's quite complicated. But as soon as it's clear, I will make these observations because this is absolutely amazing. I mean, the number of wrong beliefs that falls down with this, it's great. I love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is all new to me. Like I said, I've just learned this in the last year, 2 years almost. So, and I'm still
Yeah.
learning. So, what I learned was interesting about this is that if you look at the Earth, we know this red line is the equator, and the one that's here is called the Tropic of Cancer. What is interesting about that is that when we are in our summer, when it's the hottest, the sun is closest, and it's closest in the zodiac or Mazzaroth of Cancer. And this was named this many, many years ago. And that's as far north as the sun goes. And then it goes out. When it's winter time, it goes out here to the Tropic of Capricorn. Well, the zodiac sign for December and January is Capricorn. So the reason it's so cold is because it's out at the edge of the earth, and it's in Capricorn. So our months are associated with the zodiac signs. And the Tropic of Cancer for you guys and us, we're around the same, we're very close to the same latitude. It's hotter, and Cancer is June and July. So in that time frame, this is when the sun is closest to us. So that is some things that we're learning about the zodiacs. And so it's still taking me time. I'm still learning, and I forget, okay, which one I have to look back at. This picture is actually on my phone because I have to remember where they are, and I'm still learning. So I don't claim to have any expertise in this area, but they go around, right? They go around and move around, and every month the sun goes into one of these. So for example, here's Cancer. So we have, when the sun is in Cancer, we are in summer. Gemini is June, May and June, and then Cancer is June and July. So we need to remember the Aries start, and that's important. And the reason, again, why I'm saying that is because there are some NASA information out there that is telling people that the sun begins the year in Pisces. And if you get one of these astrolabes, you can actually prove them wrong. Last night, I looked out at the moon, and I matched it up with my astrolabe, and the moon and my Lunar Volvelle. I have this one too. So I matched it up, and the moon was in Capricorn. And my family, we saw the moon in Capricorn, and the sun had just set, and it was about a 25% moon. And this even said it was in Capricorn. And when I used my astrolabe to pinpoint where the moon was, it also said Capricorn. When I looked online on a NASA app, it's called Stellarium. There's a couple of different ones. One is Stellarium. They told me that the moon was in Sagittarius. I don't know why. But there are people who are even making new astrolabes and putting the start of the year at Pisces. But this isn't correct information. And I have found even some hieroglyphics that were found in the United States that were written in Hebrew language in the United States actually show Aries, the ram, starting the year with the equinox. It's an amazing find, and I had that on one of my videos that I posted. But the key point is to remember that nothing has changed. the year begins with Aries. So at Aries is 0. So Aries is right here. Libra is directly the opposite. So our first month is in Aries. Our 7th month is in Libra. So keeping this in mind, if you buy an Astrolabe, you'll need to make sure that they're still doing it because NASA information is changing. And I don't want to confuse too many people with that information, but keep in mind that our ancestors had some kind of tools. And do I know if it was an Astrolabe? No, I wasn't there. But they had some kind of tool that they would use to find the stars, to be able to tell what day it was. We go to school today and we learn a bunch of things that aren't even necessary for our lives. What they learned in their schooling were the stars and the Torah. They learned important things. And I believe that our ancestors knew this. And I'm getting better. I can go outside, let's say on, like last night, I knew what month we were in because I knew the moon was in a particular location. I can go out on any night with the full moon, find out where that full moon is that night, and I can tell you what month we're in. And our ancestors knew that a lot easier than me. It's taking me time, and I have my handy dandy tools, but they knew this information. And we also know that they built buildings, and I'll show you that in a little while. They built buildings to show the sun when it's in the equinoxes or when it's in the solstices. So, the sun would go through a hole in a building and it shine on inside the building, and they knew that it was the equinox or the solstice. They built buildings. There are star maps found in Egyptian hieroglyphs. They have found churches with the zodiac signs on the floor. There are churches with star maps on the ceiling. They had it written down. They knew it, right? So they knew it a lot better.
And also, there is something I found out recently, because when I talked about somebody about, there's no precession of the equinoxes. And this lady, she was saying, oh yeah, but maybe, if you imagine the firmament, and maybe you've got, we do know there are many layers, and if they are not in the same layer, maybe you can still have Polaris in the center and the sun and the moon having their trajectories, but the stars could still shift a little. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, why not? But what you showed just also threw that idea away. And I think this is great because, bit by bit, if we search for the truth, we end up getting it. And this is why we should never stop going for the truth.
Right. Right. Absolutely. And if there was a precession of the stars, they wouldn't have made things permanent. If Polaris was going to be if there was going to be a different North Star, then why are buildings set to Polaris only? And I will show you in a little while, but there are things like the Prague clock. The Prague clock was built as a structure. It was built as a permanent thing. And the Prague clock is an astrolabe and a lunar volvelle and a clock. It was an astronomical clock. And it was built
they
forever.
have redone it, huh? Haven't they?
They have
rebuilt it.
I think they've
changed it, haven't they?
I think they've only changed a few things, but it's still it's still showing the same information. And I recently posted on my channel yesterday, I believe, different, or the day before, different astronomical clocks around the world. There are a lot of them, and they made them permanent. They didn't make them to change. So we'll look at some.
Yeah, so many deceptions out there. And also, that there are a popular thing going on the internet about the 13 month and 13th signs. And people don't realize it's just also another confusion because it's got nothing to do. And so really people have to educate themselves to understand this earth sky clock of our
Mm-hmm.
creator, because there are
Yeah.
so many wrong things we hear
Mm-hmm.
on social networks.
Right.
So
Yeah. So there are some ancient astrolabes that have been found, and they all start on March 20th. All of them. I found many in Arabic and Spanish and French. I have found them all around, and they all have the same start date. No precession. They also have Aries as the start. Take a look right here. Aries is the start on all of these ancient astrolabes. Nothing else. So it hasn't gone in through any precession. So these are just some different timekeeping devices. This one down here was found with the Dead Sea Scrolls, and it was just a little handheld clock or calendar. And this is just showing a Roman one, but they all count the 12 zodiac signs, and they don't have any additional 13th month. They're always 12 months. And so the a way to take a look at that also is that well, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but some things that you want to look at is these old devices. The Astrolabe is one of them. Again, I have found some from back in the 8th century, CE, 8th century, that still show Aries for March 20th. So they're all consistent. So from then to today, you can go out and prove, again, going out to just look with your own eyes, you can find where the sun is, or based on, if you know your angles, you can figure things out. So the way to use an astrolabe, so looking on the front of the astrolabe, it shows your east and west horizon, and it shows you what you can see in your sky. So if you are standing right here, it's showing you what you can see around you. So it's a very helpful tool, but you can use that information to go and see if the sun is in fact in Pisces. The NASA apps are today telling me that the sun is in Virgo today, but it's not. It's not. So you can use this tool and it's still accurate today. And you can find out where the sun and the moon are by going out and doing your own observations. And so again, you're seeing the same information. So here on the astrolabe, this is the Tropic of Cancer. And here's the equator. And out here, your farthest you can see is the Tropic of Capricorn on the outside rim of your astrolabe. And a couple of screenshots ago, there's a website called astrolabeproject.com, and you can go there if you don't have an astrolabe, and you can try it out and see what it tells you. So the sky clock shows us where we are in time. Not only can it tell us the sun, based on where it's at in the sky, we can know what time it is during the day, but we can also find out what month we are in just by looking at the angles of the sun and the moon. So if you look at this clock over here, it looks like 3 o'clock. But if you put it onto a 24-hour clock, the time's changed. But if we pretend that the minute hand is the moon and the hour hand is the sun, we know this is at a 90-degree angle. This is kind of just like putting it over here on the sky clock, and you can figure out what month you're in based on where the sun and moon are. And that's why the astrolabe comes in handy. And this is a screenshot of my astrolabe this year on March 13th, between March 13th and 14th. And right here I'm pointing at my eastern horizon where the sun is coming up. And what I did was I showed where it was in the middle of the day. So let's see here. So my finger is pointing to the spot in the east where the moon is rising. So this is where the moon is rising. The sun has already set. So this little line right here is pretending it's nighttime. The sun is way far away. This is what you see in your night sky up here and where my finger is. This is an app called the Astrolabe app. I just have this on my phone. This is showing what I'm showing here. So the moon is right where my finger is, and the sun is down here. It's just what we're looking at, just on an Astrolabe versus an app that's showing you where the sun and the moon are. But this information shows me, based on where the sun is and where the moon is, where I can actually tell you that this was in fact on this was the 28th day of Pisces. So this told me that we weren't in the year yet. The year hadn't begun. So by March 13th, we were still in Pisces. Remember, we're looking for an Aries start for our equinox. So this was just before the year began. So this is a way that we can find out where we are. And it does take a little bit of time to get used to the Astrolabe, but I'm just showing you how I use it to show that NASA apps are not accurate. So a couple of things that we need to note is that the moon is important to the calendar. This is Psalms 104:19 right here, and it says, "He made the moon to calculate times by. The sun knows the time of his setting." Now, this is one version of this 104:19. Another version says, "He appointed the moon for seasons, the sun knows his going down." That's a very vague statement. That's in the Septuagint. But this particular version right here is in the Aramaic Targums. I've found that the Aramaic Targums has a lot more details that are taken out of the Septuagint and the Masoretic. But this is very important. These words right here, it says that he made the moon to calculate the times by. So the moon is part of the calculation of time. And so this is Strong's Concordance 4150. Appointed time or place or meeting can mean seasons. So he uses the moon to tell us what time it is. And so a lot of people following calendars that are mostly solar and not looking at the moon, there's a problem. But we also know that there are some issues with those who follow the moon because, like you said, they have a 13th month. And we're going to get into that real quick here. I'm going to skip through a couple of slides. This is something I learned about the calendar, and this is my Lunar Volvelle, and it shows the moon. It doesn't show where the sun is. It doesn't show anything else, but it shows where the moon is. And something important is learning about the Equilux and the equinox. Now, there's some confusion in those words, and I don't know the difference with your French explanation.
It's the same.
Do you know how you might want to explain the difference between the equilux and the equinox? The words are wrong.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we take the l'equinox, we take it as if it was equal night and equal day. But it's not. It's just a mathematical astronomical calculation, which is abstract. And the equilux is what anyone can observe anywhere on Earth, where the night is equal to light. So equilux is the phenomenon, and equinox is an abstract mathematical thing. And I will have to add something when we start talking about the calendar, because I did a test with different latitudes and the equilux, and it showed that it doesn't matter where you are on Earth. It doesn't matter. You still find the right dates for the same dates for everyone. If you take the equilux, so different latitudes, and this was quite amazing to me. To prove this to myself.
Yes.
Some brother don't accept that, but
Right,
for
right.
me it works.
Yes, I checked it out also for
Mm.
Jerusalem. Everyone wants to work it
Yes,
out with Jerusalem. It doesn't matter. So,
exactly.
yeah, it doesn't matter. And the reason the reason it doesn't matter is because we need to take the scripture for its word.
Mm.
I personally believe that Enoch is scripture. And
Yeah,
Enoch
sure.
tells us that there is a day that is equal parts day and night, and that is the end of our previous year. And then when we have the equinox, that's going to show us and indicate, it's a sign that the year is beginning that week. And so what I find interesting, I don't know if you got a lunar volvelle, but
Yeah, I do.
on this
Yeah,
lunar volvelle,
I
if
don't use it much.
if you might get to use it more often. If you take a look over in Pisces, you're going to see 1212. And that is telling you, now Enoch puts his parts at 18 parts. So this would be 9 and 9 according to Enoch. But for our current calendar and for the lunar Volvelle, you're going to see 12 and 12. This is indicating a day
Yes,
that has equal parts day and equal parts night. If
excellent.
you'll
Thank you, because
notice,
I was
yeah,
wondering.
if you notice, it's still in Pisces because it is usually March 16th and 17th. Always. It's just, I always just think that's all you need to know is that the Equilux, this is the Equilux, equal parts day and night is March 16th and 17th. And then we know that the year begins right after that because that's what Enoch tells us. And so that's our first marker for the end of the year. And then he tells us to look for the equinox. So just within a few days later, we start our year and we just are kind of waiting to see. And always, the equinox is March 19th or 20th. So I usually go by the 20th because if you look at the Astrolabe and here, it marks it as March 20th, which is always our indicator of when the equinox is going to happen. So between here and here is when our year is going to start. We know these are the indicators. They're all in the same place. And so this is how we can be assured that we know the year is ending and the new year is coming in. So that's another fun fact about the lunar Volvelle. But you can determine what month you're in based on where the sun is and where the moon is. So this right here is an indicator of the phase of the moon. So it does take it's a whole other study to learn how to use these, but I'm still learning. There are so many. They found thousands of ways to use an astrolabe, but I only know a few, but I know the important ones. But yes, the equilux and the equinox, although it varies with time because we all live in different timelines, different parts of the day, right? You're in the evening and I'm in the morning. So, but we are all within the same boundaries of time. And so the calendar is going to be consistent no matter where we live on the earth.
Yeah, and especially even for Sabbath, we don't even ask questions. I mean, we know that I am 6 hours ahead of you,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't matter. We still start evening and we
Yes.
finish in evening.
Right.
But this is on a bigger scale, so it's not
Yep.
a problem
Mm-hmm.
if there is like 24 hours of, just the
Right.
time that the sun goes around
Mm-hmm.
the earth.
Right.
And that's it. It's
Yes,
okay.
that's the only thing is that where the
Yeah.
position of the sun is, but we're keeping the same parameters that are explained in the Book of Enoch and the Dead Sea Scrolls. But again, I've checked with Jerusalem times because people say, "Oh, you must keep it based on Jerusalem." And my thinking behind that is that the Father knew that we would be in diaspora, we would be spread out from the ends of the earth, and he understood and still wants us to keep his Sabbath on the correct day. So
Yeah,
he,
sure.
he didn't make it hard to find. We just have to listen to the right people.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I have met myself some tribes in the middle of the Amazonia. So
Oh,
these people, they wouldn't have the information from Jerusalem.
right.
So
Exactly. Exactly. Yes, correct. Yeah. And so Enoch talks about the equal night and equal day. And he tells us that the year is precisely 364 days. So Enoch tells us how to end our year. He says it's after 364 days and it's always going to end on a Tuesday, right? It's always going to end on the third day of the week. And it's always after the equilux. And then he tells us how to start a year is the first day of the year will always begin on the fourth day, which is a Wednesday. And we must begin when the sun and the moon enter the fourth gate, otherwise known as the equinox, otherwise known as the constellation Aries. So those are all things that we just, if we learn it, then we can figure out where we start our year. And those people in Jerusalem are not paying attention to Enoch. They don't even consider his information valuable, but we
yeah,
do.
well, we know why.
Yes, oh, we do. Yes. And also don't consider the 364.25 information that you're being told. Again, there's a narrative that is out there that is feeding us wrong information. They're telling us that the sun goes around the earth, or no, yeah. No, the earth goes around the sun, whatever. 365.25, right? But Enoch states consistently, Jubilees states consistently that there are only 364 days, and it stops there. If you're getting all of this other information, it's not based on observation because you're just getting the information from a source, from NASA, or somebody's telling you that. You've learned that in history books and science books, but that's not
Oh,
accurate.
amazing. You're saying that maybe we don't even know that we don't even observe that the sun takes 365.25 days.
No, and the astrolabe shows you this is a 360-degree circle, but we add the 4 days, and I'm still theorizing. This is my theory that a circle is actually 364 degrees, and I know that sounds strange, but I have found other people who are finding the same information.
Mm, yeah.
So it's not 365.25. That doesn't factor
Mm,
into,
all right. I mean, even this didn't matter to me, even I didn't come to your understanding on
Mhm.
this. But I mean, the way we intercalate, it just doesn't matter because I had um, I have this come across on my path that oh yeah, but you're going to have comment est-ce qu'on peut dire a shift little by little because of this 0.25, but at the end, it doesn't really matter. It's not that precise. And when you do intercalate, it all falls back like organically, if I can
Right. It
say.
does go, it
Mm.
clicks back, and then eventually it's like a typewriter. It goes and then it zips on back, and
Mm.
then it goes and then it zips on back. So it all works out. It doesn't, ours, the way we keep it does not fall back and keep going.
No, no,
It's
no.
consistent and it comes back each
And
time.
this is the force, the strength of your method, and this is why I like it, because I mean, it's not like when we read Enoch, some people read it like it's one particular day, like one precise day. But with your way of doing, we look at a larger picture with all the luminaries, the equilux, the equinox, the vernal point, and so it's like it's more like a zone, an area of the calendar, and we can pinpoint the right first day, but with a larger vision, and this makes it quite strong, I think.
Yeah, it does. And it does take a little bit of learning to do. I mean, this didn't come to me quickly, but when I looked at the Book of Enoch, I decided to make a chart. And this is a chart that I made based on the luminaries. So based on the zodiac. So here we have Aries and then we have Taurus. So this is the cycle. This is what you look at on your astrolabe. Another thing that we also have noticed, and this was from a friend of mine that I didn't even know, and then I looked it up and it's accurate, that the Big Dipper changes pattern for each season. And it indicates to us what season we're in. So when you go outside in the spring, the equinox looks like this. And then in the fall, like right now, I just went out recently and it's in this position. And it's coming down, it's a little bit farther because we are here in this area right here. So it's a little bit farther down. But another indication of keeping the right calendar is the position of all of the stars, of course, but you can tell what season you're in. And so again, this is all his clock and it's coming to life. And that's my goal. Is I am not an expert on any of this, but my goal is to bring people back to his calendar. And this is another way to show the same thing I just showed. It's just in a chart instead of the circle. But we go through, and this is Enoch's gates. He tells us what months the sun's in what gates. And so this is the number of the gate, this is the number of the months, and he tells us what gates the sun is in. And so this is the same chart as this. So the sun goes through each gate. So I have the gates listed here. So in the spring, we're in the fourth gate, and in the fall, we're in the fourth gate. So if you go outside and look where the sun is coming up in the morning, it's going to be in that exact same position every year at that same spot. And so these are just charts that I made. I'm just going to skip through a couple of things. My way of keeping...
This is amazing.
Yeah, my way of keeping all of this together, I put all of this together, and I was trying to figure out how the equinox fits into the pattern, and does it create a pattern? And when I went back in time and forward in time, and I looked at the equinox on March 20th, and any time the equinox moved to the next, okay, let me try this slower. The previous year is ending on a Tuesday. If the equinox is within that week, Sunday through Saturday, if the equinox is in that week, we keep going in that week and we start our year on that Wednesday. But as soon as it shifts into the next week, Sunday is the first day of the week. As soon as March 20th goes into the Sunday, then we move our start date to the following week. That's the only time we ever skip. And again, it's that typewriter. It goes, every year it clicks and then it moves back. Clicks a few years and then it goes back. But we're still within the first 2 to 3 degrees of Aries. So one year we might be one day off of Aries, but it's still going into Aries the week that the equinox is, coming, because it goes in on March 20th. So we keep within Aries. And when I noticed the pattern, March 2013 was March 20th. Then it went 19, 18. Now my key is that we can never begin our year before March 16th. Remember the Equilux. We cannot go before that because Enoch told us that that's the end of our year. So we can never go before March 16th. And I know there are Zadok Enoch calendars out there that are going before March 16th. We cannot do that. So the earliest you'll ever see on here is March 16th. The latest, we can never go any farther than the 23rd. So looking through here, the 23rd is the farthest forward that we can ever go. So we need to stay within Aries start. And then when I noticed the pattern, I noticed that every 7th year, something happened, and that was the equinox going into the next week. So that's a leap year. And it's a pattern of sevens. The Father loves his sevens. So these are all patterns. And I learned this 2 years ago. This was my first excitement when I learned, the chart. When I learned it, that's what the first thing that came to my mind. Oh, there's a pattern. And that's what we need to learn.
Yeah. I just have one question because I couldn't really figure it out myself. How do you come to 7 in each time? Because if I start at 2013, if I go to 2019, I count 6 years.
Yes,
Am I wrong?
it's the 7th year in the cycle. So if you look at this chart, I have, my computer froze. There we go. If you look at this chart, you count, Gamul is the first priest of the priestly cycle. And there are 6 priestly cycles, and then it goes back to Gamul. So every 7th year, Gamul is back. So you have Gamul, 6 years, and then Gamul again. So that's the 7. And so you count the first year. So it's 7 years between Gamul to Gamul. So then it's every 3 years is a leap year.
All right.
So
Okay.
let me go to my next. The priestly cycle is another key point that some calendars out there, they're not keeping this. And this is what I gathered from the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Book of Chronicles and the Book of Kings. They tell us the priestly cycle. And Gamul is the year 1 priest. So it goes in a 7-year cycle. And this is the year 1 of the 6th year until Gamul comes on again. So the first priestly cycle is Gamul. So he is the priest in the first week of a jubilee. And that's a whole other thing. But I took the Book of Jubilees and I made a chart. And this is a clip of my chart. And the Dead Sea Scrolls in 4Q320 and 319, it tells you the priestly cycle for the whole year. And it tells you when Gamul is. And so on my Jubilee calendar, I have Gamul in blue. So he's the first year, and then he's the 7th year here. And then he is 7 years later here on the 13th, 7 years later on the 19th. And it goes in a diagonal. And the 4Q320 and 319 tell you the Gamul years. Every year he served from the 1st Jubilee to the 7th Jubilee. Gamul wasn't even alive in the 1st through the 7th Jubilee, right? Gamul was a priest that was not alive until the Book of Kings and Chronicles. So he was, even Genesis, but he wasn't alive at the beginning when Adam came here. But the Dead Sea Scrolls tells us if Gamul was alive, he would have been the priest the first year, and the 7th year, and every 7 years after that. So the Dead Sea Scrolls helps us to go back in time and forward in time to know when our Jubilee years are and when our seventh years are.
Yeah, this is awesome. Some people would say that Gamul is not the first one because it's not listed as the first one in the canon.
Yes. So he actually, if you think of it, for example, for 2025, we are in a Gamul year. It's called a Gamul year. But if you take a look up here, he's actually at the end of the previous year. He started on the 28th day of the 12th month. But he ended on the 3rd day of the first month. So who is officially starting the year? Gamul. However, Delia is who would begin because Gamul started at the end of the previous year. And so that might be confusing because he wasn't listed there. But he's ending the year and just starting for a few days of the new year. So that might be why people are confused in that. Because this is actually for the end of the previous year. When I put together this Jubilee chart, let me see, I think it's my next page. Oh, no, it's not my next page. When I put together this Jubilee chart, I went all the way to our present time and in the future. And the blue lined up on 2025 and 2019 was the previous Gamul year. So that's another way to do it is to, look at the chart. But yes, I have learned what we are in based on the moon for the year. But for Gamul year, the only way, if you have been charting it, then you would know. But if you didn't know, if you were just to wake up one day from a good sleep, you wouldn't know if it was a Gamul year or not.
Okay.
The only way that I think people would know is if they're studying the Dead Sea Scrolls and connecting Jubilees in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Some people have... so something that is important, it talks about in the Dead Sea Scrolls that Gamul is a pattern of every 294 years. So in this spot right here, he's at the beginning of this Jubilee, Jubilee 1. He's in the first week. So the Book of Jubilees is broken down by 7 weeks. And every week has 7 years. So every time he's in this spot, the beginning of a Jubilee, the first week, and the first year, that happens every 294 years. So this happened in the 7th Jubilee right here. This is the dotted line right here. So this same thing, he's at the beginning of a Jubilee, the first week, and the first year. And that happens every 294 years. So if you just sit with the calculator, you can figure out if it's a Gamul year. But that's the only other way to do it, is if you have all of this information. But you might not know it unless you have all of this information together.
Thank you anyway for doing that for us. Huh?
Yeah. And then let me see, what else was I going to mention here? Let's see. Do you have a question?
Yeah. Somebody said to me today, but our way of doing couldn't be consistent because we don't take in account the
leap year because of the leap year. So the Gregorian calendar has a leap year, but that person is getting information and they're trying to wrap their head around the Gregorian calendar.
Yes,
Our calendar has nothing to do with the Gregorian calendar.
exactly.
Something
Personally, my mind is completely doesn't care about Gregorian
right,
dates, numbers. I
right.
don't care.
The only reason we use the Gregorian calendar is to work out our everyday lives. But and we need to figure it out. So we go to the back of the Astrolabe and we can match the Gregorian date with today's date. But we're only doing that to make sense of time. But all in all, we can't. We're not using the Gregorian calendar, but it's hard.
It's
It's
only a matter
hard to
of 7
separate it.
days.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
hard to understand that that's not what we are, not where we're coming from. But that's the hard concept, is that people aren't understanding that this is completely separate from the Gregorian calendar.
Mm.
And again, that's why we believe it's 364 days only, yet we still have to figure out where we are in time. So we have to translate it to match where we are in time. So it can be hard to disassociate from the Gregorian way of keeping. We've been taught all of this information our whole lives, that we live on a ball, that our years are 365.25, that we're being taught now that there's the precession of the stars, but they're saying it's because of the wobble of the earth. Well, we don't wobble. So
And there are 4 wobbles, by the way.
there's
So
so
how do you do?
many. Yeah. So we're just being given so much misinformation that it's just a challenge. I don't know what to say to those people, but unfortunately they're trying to make sense of it all. And I know we've all been there. We're all trying to make sense. I'm trying to make sense of the calendar
I
to
mean, many of us are really trying to find the truth, and we explore different ways, and it's okay. I mean, it's like this that we go forward.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. All right. So this next picture that I'm showing is from the Dead Sea Scrolls, and this is showing the first year Gamul, and this is 4Q319. This is the one that I was referring to, that I got my information from to validate the Book of Jubilees. So this book is not the Book of Jubilees. This is called the Calendar of Heavenly Signs, but it matched my Jubilees calendar. So this, for example, on line 9, let me find here. Line 9, it tells us that on the 4th day of the week of creation, so it's telling us the creation was made on Wednesday, on the 4th day of the, or sorry, that the 4th day of the week, so it's telling us when the creation happened. 4 days later is the course of Gamul. Now again, Gamul wasn't alive on the 4th day of creation, but these are kept by scribes who were trying to tell us how to keep the calendar. So they're helping us match things up. And so this document tells us every time Gamul is in a spot, and it lines up exactly. So here on, let's see here, line 16 right here, it says that Gamul is in the first year after the Sabbath year. So, in the first year after a Sabbath year. So, he goes here all the way down here. He ends the Jubilee. Here is the Sabbath year. And then this is, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So, yeah. So, this is the 7th week, 7th year. Gamul was the priest in the first year and the 7th year. So if we take a look, it says, let me read it here. Gamul in the 3rd year. Oh, this is the second Jubilee. Oh, yes, but it ends right here. It says the conjunction of Gamul in the Sabbath year. So it starts right here. So
Correct.
right here, Gamul is in the Sabbath year. So that is right here. That's the end of the first Jubilee. And then it says, then we have the end of the Jubilee. And then it says the second Jubilee, there are 17, of which 3 are sabbatical years. So sabbatical years are Sabbath, right? Sabbatical 7th year. And then it says, then the conjunction of Shekanyah in the 3rd year and the conjunction of Gamul in the 6th year. So here we had him in the 7th year. And then it tells us in the second Jubilee, he's in the 6th year. So this is showing that it matches the Jubilee years. So it's telling us when Jubilees are. So if we want to know when the Jubilees are, we just go right here. So we are actually not in a Jubilee year, but I want to show you something. In the 80th Jubilee, this is based on my research and adding the Jubilee calendar. Yahusha was born in the 80th Jubilee, 7th week, 7th year. So 80th Jubilee, 7th week, 7th year. The Father likes his sevens. And then we are right here. So we are in 2025 right here. So we are in a Gamul year, but we're not in a Sabbath year. The Sabbath year is actually in 2028. And this is not me saying it. This is me just plugging in the numbers and matching it with the Dead Sea Scrolls. I didn't do any of this except for the notes on the side. I'm just going through the patterns. So I find it very interesting that we can find where we are. And I think there are a lot of religions that say that 2025 is a Jubilee year. But if we follow the Book of Jubilees, it's not.
Awesome.
Other things that the scrolls tell us is the moon phases. And so this is just another example of 4Q320 telling us the moon phase. Now here is something very interesting, that this matches our Zadok calendar. But for those people who follow the lunar calendars, we know that the new moon for them is always at the beginning of the month. What's interesting is the Dead Sea Scrolls tell us right here, on the 4th day of Pythia is the 29th day of the lunar month. So they're telling us it's at the end of the moon cycle. Right here on the 4th day of Pythia. He's here. You count 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's on the 27th day of our 5th month is where Pythia is, based on the Dead Sea Scrolls too. And it's telling us that there's a new moon here. That doesn't work out for those who follow the lunar Sabbaths or the lunar calendars, because it's telling us that the moon is at the end of our month, not at the beginning. So I find that very interesting. And this is, through a lot of studying, I want to know what calendar is right. And I haven't been able to coordinate the Dead Sea Scrolls with a lunar keeping calendar. So I've gone through on, I don't know what you want to touch base on today, but I have very specific videos that I have done that show the difference between our calendar and other calendars. We know.
I really liked this one. Huh?
Yeah, we know what
Very complete
parameters that we are told for the year, and these are the ones that we're told in Enoch and the Dead Sea Scrolls. We're told what we're looking for. So those are the parameters. What we're looking for is the 4th day, Wednesday. And no, it's not on a Tuesday or a Friday. We know that the times have not changed. The weekdays have not changed. So it will always be on the 4th day of the week. And then Enoch 74, 13 through 16, this is the chapter where he adds up all of the days of the year. And I'm not going to read it all, but it doesn't work for lunar keeping people. Here's what Enoch tells us in verse 13 through 16, he tells us the calculations of 3 years, 5 years, and 8 years. These are the calculations he gives us. If you put it into a solar calendar, like the Gregorian calendar, you're going to get different days. And then if you put it on a lunar keeper's calendar, you're going to get different days. It doesn't add up. So key things come from the Book of Enoch. Another thing in the Dead Sea Scrolls, it tells us that David wrote Psalms, and it says that he wrote 364 of them, one for each day of the year. Now, if we were keeping a lunar calendar, we could have 384 days in our year. So did David miss the note? Did he miss the memo that we were supposed to have? He needed to write 20 more Psalms. But no, it says 364, and he wrote 52 Sabbath songs. But that doesn't work out for a lunar keeper. So we have to keep that into consideration.
And same for the songs of the Shabbat sacrifice, which are only of 13.
Yes.
So 13 for each season.
Yes. Yes. So he made one for for all of the appropriate times, and that doesn't add up for anybody else. So he made 364 songs, 52 Sabbath songs, 12 new month songs. Only 12, not 13. So that's another one for your friend, is that, David would have written at least a backup psalm for us to read on the years if we had an extra month. And he wrote 30 songs for the festival days and the Day of Atonement. So we only have that many days. David wrote it for that many days only. Yeah. And so there's there's all kinds of calendars out there, but we all need to test them. And my problem with the other ones is that they have alternating Sabbaths. Sometimes they have Sabbaths on the same day as a high holy day. And that doesn't match. That's inconsistent, and it doesn't match Jubilees or Enoch. Mm-hmm.
And they also, people have to not just take into account the canon, the official canon. They have to open the scriptures to what is called Apocrypha and pseudepigrapha books, because they hold so many informations that we wouldn't have in the in the canon.
And the Dead Sea Scrolls.
It's moved through time.
Right.
We really should have a look at why we should believe in Enoch, first Enoch, Jubilees, 12 patriarchs, etc., etc.
Yeah, and for those who don't
use these books, you can't come to this truth. It's not possible.
And Jubilees and Enoch were found in the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Now I've heard so many things. I've heard, but the Dead Sea Scrolls, they're made up and stuff. But people who say that, they have not read them, because if they did, they couldn't say that. You just have to read them. You can't say it's made up. You just cannot.
And I encourage people to read them and study them, because it's not just a book. It actually confirms all scripture. There, with a couple of exceptions. There's a couple of things in the scrolls that I'm, not so sure about. I think they've been added. But when I look at the scrolls, they fill in the blanks. They're like puzzle pieces, and they help us to understand even the Masoretic text that we have.
Yeah, and they don't help Catholicism. They don't help Judaism. So it's not powers that are, powerful at the who said, "Oh yeah, we're going to manipulate people and we're going to create false manuscripts." It's against them.
It is. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. And we keep talking about the pattern as being fixed. Enoch 74:10 says, "Thus I behold their stations as according to the fixed order." So Enoch also talks here in 82:8 that the luminaries and the months are fixed periods. So nothing is changing through time. The Father has not changed his calendar, that they are fixed. In 2 Baruch 21, another book that's outside of the canon, but it used to be part of the canon, says that you have made the earth, hear me, that have fixed the firmament by your word. So all of these things are going to always be consistent. We read in prophecy that the only time that these things are not going to be fixed is when he returns. Otherwise, all of this is going to be in fixed calendar keeping. The lunar calendars, like I said, their days of the week don't match. The luminaries don't match timekeeping. And again, I cover this in other videos. We don't have a whole day to do all of this.
Yeah, I know.
But the Sabbaths do not
we
match.
can talk about it for 5 hours.
I know, yeah. The Sabbaths don't match for them. The priestly cycles, they don't even keep that in consideration. I haven't found lunar Sabbath keepers who even look at the Dead Sea Scrolls again.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and their priestly cycles, there's only enough priests, the 13 or the 24 priests, that they rotate, that they could not have enough priests to go for the 384 days if we have a 13th month. The priestly cycle does not account for that. And so all of these factors are important when deciding what kind of calendar you want. And lunar Sabbath keeping people, their first day of the year can be any day of the week. Their Sabbaths can be any day of the week, and we've already learned that we can't do that. We are going against Scripture by making a Tuesday into a Sabbath day. Their Sabbaths and feasts overlap. They add a 13th month. There is no 7-day cycle. If you've looked into that, I don't know if you have, but sometimes they are several days before. I think 8 or 9 days I've counted between Sabbath to Sabbath for them. It's very interesting. And they have something called non-days that they are non-existent days. It doesn't even make sense to me.
I had explored lunar Sabbath because as I was coming into the faith in Torah, I was, I had a friend, and we studied to each one on our sides, and he was going for the lunar, and the more I was studying the question, the more I was leaning on the solar calendar. And so we started to exchange information, but I just couldn't get on board with his logic. And there are some premises in the logic when you do lunar Sabbath, which is you can't trust history, you can't trust the creator, that we have the information to find his ways, and so it has to be the moon. I think Yehovah has done what he could do for us to find his truth. And I think the found of the Dead Sea Scrolls is one of these miracles, really.
Absolutely. Right. And it gets us back in line with looking at the stars and trying to figure this out. They spent a lot of time writing down information about the sun, moon, and the stars. So it must have something to do with his calendar. It must have something to do with his Torah, and keeping his correct feast days. Obviously, that's important. So,
it's amazing to realize that this is a war that's been going on for thousands of years.
Right. The Dead Sea Scrolls, a version that I have, it's called a New Translation, and they even talk about calendar wars from, that's what happened even in biblical times. That's what happened in Second Temple. The Pharisees were keeping a different Sabbath or a different calendar than those who were keeping the scrolls, who were, the Qumran community. So another thing that we can tell also, again, with the fixed calendar in the Dead Sea Scrolls, they literally tell us when the Sabbaths are, what day they are, what day of the week they are. And when I went through and put the lunar Sabbaths and the Zadok calendar Sabbaths, they didn't match up. And here is the weekly lunar Sabbaths for each month. They always have the 8th, the 15th, the 22nd, and 29th. What do you see here is that the 15th is highlighted because we know that the Feast of Unleavened Bread is on the 15th. So they're going to have a Saturday Sabbath with the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And that's why I talk about we should not be overlapping them. They shouldn't overlap. And according to the Zadok calendar, that doesn't ever happen. We always have our sacred Sabbath time and then our holy convocation time. They're separate events. I wrote down here why I reject the lunar Sabbath, and that's because there's no scriptural evidence. They're going to try to tell you that the moon determines the month because all of our translations tell us new moon. And they are starting out wrong because they haven't looked up the translation of the word Chodesh.
Yeah, it's a whole subject. Yeah.
That is a whole subject on its own, and that will throw their whole logic out the window, but they just have to look up one word and look into that each time new moon is mentioned in the scriptures to make sure you have a correct translation. Let me see here. Lunisolar calendars, again, they can have a 13th month, and that's not anywhere in scriptures. That's nowhere. Zero. Have you ever found a 13th month in scriptures? No. It's because it's been mistranslated and turned around and twisted. They're following Babylon, and that's the Babylonian calendar. And I really looked into the Babylonian calendar, and that's where they get that information from, not from anything that the Father had.
And that's the calendar of Zeus. It's the calendar.
Yeah. And then we have, I don't know if you've come across there's a lot of new understanding with the Zadok calendar. The Zadok calendar is new. It's newer. And now everyone is making it into something that it's not, and they're twisting it just slightly. There is a group out there that believes that we start our year on the equinox. And when I looked into that, I thought, well, maybe there's something to that. And I look into everything like you did with the lunar calendar. It's okay to look into it and test it for ourselves. We are going to come up with different things because we all are given our own personality, our own, what appeals to us, what sounds right to us. So your truth and my truth might be different, but that's where we stand. But we should be willing to change. And I started out with a different Zadok calendar, and it was called an Enoch calendar. The person who put it together called it an Enoch calendar. But he was sometimes starting his year in March 14th and going way too far back. Now there's also these other groups that are doing equinox start. And I looked into it, and I found that the problem is that their first day, again, can begin any day of the week. That's, again, we've determined that's not okay. Their
I've got a couple of brothers who function like this in the community.
Yeah. And their Sabbaths are going to be different every year.
Yeah. So we have to accept that the last or first week, the week that goes at the end or the beginning of the year, we have to accept that the Sabbath changes days. It breaks the 7-day cycle if we do this.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean,
right.
There's two things, because in our case, we have to accept 1 week intercalation every six year. And some people don't accept that because, we don't have any trace, any records in scriptures, not even in the Dead Sea Scroll, okay?
Actually, I just found it.
Oh,
I just found
yes.
it. Okay.
That is so good. Amazing.
So I did post it yesterday because I just found it. Let me see if I can pull it up.
Oh, yes, please.
Let me, it'll be just a second. I don't know how to share it, but I'm going to try. Let's see. So I was looking at the Dead Sea Scrolls, and so it was one of the screenshots that I already had in here, and it was one that was showing a Gamul year. Okay. Okay, share my screen again. This is exciting. So go ahead and share it. Okay, so this was way back. This is 4Q319. Now, I was trying to figure out why this document mentions Gamul and then Shekanyah. Shekanyah is the year 4 priestly cycle. So we have Gamul 1 and Shekanyah 4. I was trying to figure out why this scroll went from Gamul to Shekanyah, not the priest that is in second. This document not only tells you when Gamul years are, it is actually telling us when the leap years are. If you take a look at this, it says, just give you an example, the conjunction of Shekanyah in the 3rd year, the conjunction of Gamul in the 6th year. Okay. Gamul and Shekanyah are far apart from each other in their years. They did not do Gamul, and then I think it's another, it starts with a J, is the priest that's second. They're actually telling you the word here, conjunction, the translators translated this word to the word conjunction, and people associate that with the moon.
Yeah, of course.
That's
we
why
use it that way.
that's why they have up here the lunar solar conjunction of the 2nd Jubilee. I crossed that out a long time ago because I thought this has nothing to do with the moon. The word conjunction is actually, I believe, should be talking about the leap year. That this is the leap year with Shekanyah. He's the 4th one. So you go Gamul, 2 more. Shekanyah is the year that we leap.
Excellent.
He is a leap year. Every year Shekanyah comes into view, it is a leap year.
That's amazing.
So this is actually, because I couldn't figure out why it was telling me Gamul then Shekanyah. This doesn't make sense.
Yeah, we do you have access to the Hebrew version of the text? Because maybe we can find that word and see
I do
different
not.
translations.
Yeah, I don't have that at the moment, but I'm going to look into it. But I'm thinking this is actually telling us the conjunction or another form of the shift, the leap, or else it would be mentioning the second priest in the cycle. But I think I found it, but I'm going to continue to search into that. So let me see where we were in our So
Excellent.
Here we go back to equinox to equinox. I don't think that's right. The reason is because the equinox from one equinox to another equinox can be anywhere from 365 days to 366 days. So, for example, people this year started their year on March 20th. If they started with the equinox start. So they started and they just put it in day 4. They just put the 20th, a Thursday, in day 4. So they think that day 4 can be any day, doesn't matter. If whatever day the equinox is, they just put it on day 4.
Yeah.
So it should be March 19th because we believe that's a Wednesday. It should always be a Wednesday. So the equinox start folks are implanting information. So here I did a 4-year cycle. Sometimes it's on March 19th. Sometimes it's on March 20th. If you go equinox to equinox, you're going to be 365 or 366 days. So it doesn't work out for 364. You would have to do some gymnastics for that. So again, they're changing days, and we can't do that. And it's another reason I did not agree with the equinox start. So that's there's the Sabbath, we know, again, has always been Saturday. So if you're starting it on a different day of the week or having your Sabbath on a different day of the week, there's a problem. Different Zadok calendars for 2025. There were a lot of people who intercalated this year, but they weren't not using the sun and the moon and the stars. Again, there are some people who are using the sun. Some people are looking at the moon, but they're saying they're using the moon, but they don't understand how it all works in the process. And they're starting their year. They're saying they're starting their year in Pisces also. And the sun doesn't, it might be in Pisces for the first week, but it's not for the first month. They're telling us that the first whole month of the year will be in Pisces. And so that's incorrect information.
Yeah.
So the reason why I don't like other intercalations for the Zadok calendar is because, again, they're not taking the sun, moon, and stars into consideration. Their calculations don't line up. A lot of them are using NASA information, and they're strange calculations. I have seen some very interesting workarounds for the intercalation. Some people just pick, we're just going to intercalate every 5 years or every 6 years or every 7 years. So which one is it? So what's really great about what I have found is the pattern, that it is a pattern. It's not just me thinking I'm going to do an intercalation every 5, 6, or 7 years. I'm watching when the equinox goes into the next week. And it just so happens to be every 7th year. And
you're trusting the 7-day cycle.
Yes.
This is the base.
Yes,
so you're
absolutely.
just fully trusting that and working really around that, and you find what you find.
Right. And that's why these instruments are very useful. And, I don't make any money. I'm not even making them. I'm not trying to sell them. However, because we're so new, we need some tool to help us, to guide us. And these are the tools that can help us to learn how they move in the sky and where to locate and what degrees, we're learning. And so these are very helpful tools.
Sure. Yeah, because ancient Hebrews, they could do this with naked eyes.
Yeah.
Because they were reading the sky all the time.
Right.
So they knew. But for us today, it would take us many observations for a long period of time to know actually what's going on.
Right.
So we need these tools.
I know. I know and I have memorized how the moon has a calendar, and they call it a moon month. It has the 28 or 29 day cycle. And in the Dead Sea Scrolls, it tells you what constellation they're in every night of the year. And I have made a chart and I have memorized it, but I have to write it out with my memory. But the moon stays in a zodiac every 2 to 3 nights. So certain months, it might be in this one for 2 nights, and then the next one for 2 nights, and then the next one it's in for 3 nights. But it's a pattern, and I've memorized it, but I can't memorize all of it because I'm older and I have a lot of my mind,
Yeah, we should learn this at a young age.
Yes, that's what our ancient ancestors did, is they taught their children as soon as they could look up at the sky and say, hey, look, this is how you know. They were able to go outside.
Whereas for us, we have to unlearn to learn again.
Right,
this is
absolutely. So learning all of these things, learning the seasons and the zodiacs, that was my first struggle, is because I didn't even know what they look like in the sky, because I don't spend time outside, but I've been spending more time. We just got a telescope this week, so we're going to start doing a lot more stargazing, but I really want to learn everything I can. But the important things that we need to keep in mind is the Dead Sea Scrolls are a great foundation to start to figure out how this clock works. It fills in the puzzle pieces. And, you know, there are a lot of people who might disagree, and that's okay. They might not like the Dead Sea Scrolls, and that's okay. We just need to, I don't know, pray about it, think about it.
You know, if we pile up enough informations of a good quality, it might help some people to go over maybe some resistance, you know, and maybe if we start making sense thanks to the Dead Sea Scrolls, then, you know, there is something there. So
Right. Yeah. There was something else here. Hold on just a moment. I think I have here something that helps us to dispel a lot of the lies, is because, again, the Father left breadcrumbs. And something that I noticed is, again, like I said earlier, there were a lot of buildings that were made to show the calendar. If you take a look at the pyramids, they are actually a calendar. They actually, for the winter solstice and the spring equinox and all of the 4 seasons of the year, the way that the sun casts shadows upon the Giza pyramid will tell you what season we're in. So buildings were, I mean, they had calendars everywhere. They had sundials everywhere.
And even, you know, it's octagonal, the pyramid. It's not, it hasn't got 4 faces. It's got 8, because if you look on the equinox, there is a phenomenon where it flashes in a certain way, but it lasts for only maybe a few seconds. You have to catch it. You can see it from a plane.
Oh, okay. That's, I didn't
You didn't know that?
No. There you
Oh, wow. Yeah.
No.
I will send you some stuff about it.
Yeah.
It shows equiluxes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's, see, we learned something. And again, these things, there's all these places down here. There's places across the earth, different pyramids, Angkor Wat in India, different churches and places that have been established. That's where we can see the ancient ways of keeping time, that they knew how to align their buildings with the stars. They did it on purpose because they could go out and see and say, yep, you know, learning about the stars, my first constellations that I learned, I told you that Orion, Cassiopeia, if you start learning them, you can know when they come seasonally. They come in different seasons that you can see them. So it's just a matter of like you said, unlearning all of those other things and trying to fill it in with the correct things. These ancient tools, this one was from 1068 AD, and it's still accurate today. So this information he didn't hide. He left the breadcrumbs, but it's whether we're willing to look into it and research it. And this is a temple in Mexico that's built for the equinox. There's someone asked, you know, did they what kind of tools did our ancestors have if they didn't have astrolabes? Well, this is a star, it's on a rock, I believe. It's a star map, and this was in ancient Sumerian. And they have found things like this all over the place. Some kind of handheld, whether, you know, instead of a building, something that they could hold in their hand that they could look up and say, oh, it's this month, or we're in this time. But they knew their stars. And then we have things like the Prague clock. These are everywhere on a lot of buildings across the earth. So we've kept times. In the book of, was it Joshua, who who was it? We have different types of stairways and ways of keeping time for the day. You know, if you go out, you can use your astrolabe to tell what time of day it is, based on where the sun is.
Yeah, with the Alidad at the back, yeah?
Yep.
This part?
Yep. You just go out there and you line that up with the sun and you can tell what time it is. So a sundial. Again, there are places that were mentioned in Scripture. I do have a couple of different texts. I'll go through. Oh, go ahead.
Just go back the previous slide,
Yep.
please. You know the degrees of Ahaz?
Yeah.
Ahaz.
Yeah, that's what this
I
one
had
is.
a brother who had questions about it. I mean, have you ever heard of this? Have you? I don't know. Have you ever come across this information where it was different before this event?
Yeah.
And after?
Yeah. I don't think that anything has changed. And there's the stair of Ahaz, and then there's the time when Joshua held up the staff and the sun and the moon stopped, right? What was that in the book of Joshua? The sun and the moon stopped.
2 Kings 20 and
Right.
Isaiah 38.
Yeah. So there were times where things supernatural happened. I don't believe that the Father would mess up our clock and being able to tell time. You know, I was thinking about that, and if we're mentioning the second book of Kings 20, right? Where the was it Hezekiah? Wasn't it Hezekiah was about to die?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and he wanted to show him a sign, and so he moved the sundial back 10 steps because we know the shadows on a sundial don't usually go back 10 steps. So that would be an amazing sign. But it could have been just for 30 minutes. It could have been for 1 minute. I don't think that time was changed with that. Same with Joshua. It says that the sun and the moon stood still for, who knows, we think that could have been a whole day, for hours so that they could finish the war. Do you think that the fathers stopped, making his calendar work at that time? I don't think so. I just think that it was just a supernatural event that happened and for probably a short time, and then everything went back to normal.
Sure. Otherwise, he would have sent us another prophet.
Yes.
With a new way of keeping the calendar.
Right. Oh, you guys, we need to start it this way. Yeah, exactly. I agree. So I don't think that, I don't think he changed the time because, again, his Sabbaths are holy. Why would he mess up the calendar, change it up? Because he wants us to keep the Sabbath day holy. Again, something that I showed was the Lunar Volvelle, and I wanted to share with your viewers. This is a picture. This was in a book. A lot of these were in books. And so we don't know if they had something to hold in their hand or they had a papyri or how our ancients were able to tell time, but they had these ancient tools as well as sundials, easy to make. They're really easy. But these things tell us the time.
Yeah, with children, it's really good as well to teach them. It's very pedagogical.
Yeah, right, definitely. And, but for our children, it's, they're going to learn so much quicker because they're younger and they have nice young minds. That they're, this is the age where they're going to be able to.
Oh, but it's awful when they come back from school with some BS.
Yes.
And I have to this is a really strange position. Huh? I've got 2 10-year-old boys, and it's an awkward position where you just have to tell them, well, no, this is not right, and I've got to explain you why. but they're okay. They can, they can still. It doesn't seem to create so much trouble for them.
Yeah.
They make the difference. They have discernment,
Yep.
and they
Yeah.
make their way. They will make their way.
Yeah. I have two children. One is still in school, and I homeschool. But it's hard when they learn one thing the way the world is teaching them, and you're trying to just correct them into the right understanding. It's hard. I definitely understand. Yeah. The last section here, I guess, I have on my presentation is talking about that lunar volvelle. And another new find of mine that I have come to the understanding is I can tell when our months begin and when they end based on the moon. So I don't know if you've watched my recent video, but we have a full moon and a new moon each month, right? Every 30 days, there is a full moon and a new moon. And looking at, this was just me recently looking at the full moons and the new moons for September and October, because there are people who intercalated for this Zadok calendar this year. And I wanted to prove with the sun and the moon and the stars how I can confirm when our months begin and end. So September 7th, September 21st, October 6th, and October 21st. I looked at all 4 of these moons to determine when our 7th month began. Now, remember our year begins with Aries. So our 7th month, the sun should be in Libra. For our 7th month, the new moon should be in Libra, because a new moon happens when it's with the sun. A full moon happens when the moon is directly across from the sun. It's 180 degrees. That's when we have a full moon. So I'm looking at September and October to find out when we have a new moon in Libra and a full moon in Aries. So we're doing the opposite that we did in the first month of the year. But what I'm going to show you right now is what you can do every single month, every year. And you can find the start date of every month of the year based on what I've shown you today. So we need to find, when we begin our year, we need to start with the equinox, right? So somewhere in there. And it should always start on a Wednesday. Since we have a fixed calendar in the Zadok calendar, our 7th month is going to be just like our first month. We're going to start our first day of our 7th month on a Wednesday, right? So keep that in mind. We need to find our 7th month. So what I did, I used apps to look at this also, but I looked at all of these on my Lunar Volvelle. So you can use an app. Again, it's very challenging because some of these apps use NASA data. And the way I know they're using NASA data, like I said, is because some of them are telling you that last night they told me that my sun was in Virgo. That's over a month behind. Virgo was over a month ago. So let me show you here. Here is my 7th month. I have up here Libra, so that means the sun is in Libra. What I'm doing is I looked at September and October moon. So on my calendar, I have a new moon here on September 21st, and I have a full moon on October 6th. I started on a Wednesday for my 7th month here on September 17th, and I ended here on October 16th. There are people who intercalated for 2025. They started their 7th month on this day, September 24th. And I'm going to show you why that's wrong based on the sun, moon, and stars. So on September, let me see here. Let's see what this one is. September 7th. Here is my Lunar Volvelle on September 7th. And I put the sun on the date. So this is September 7th. So here's August, and here's September just started. And this is on the 7th day. And then I have a full moon, which is directly 100%, 180 degrees opposite. This is telling me that the sun was in Virgo, right here. And it's telling me the moon was in Pisces. So that is definitely not the 7th month, because Virgo is the sign for the 6th month. So then I went to the next new moon, which was September 21st. So here is September 21st is right here. We just got into Libra. See, here's the line right here. This is Virgo. This is Libra. So we're in Libra with the new moon. So that is thumbs up. That means we are in the 7th month on September 21st. Okay? And then on October 6th. So here is September. October 6th is right here. So the sun is in Libra. That's good. That means we're in the 7th month. The moon is in Aries. That's great news. So that means October 6th was in our 7th month. Okay? But then let's go to October 21st. Here, sorry, it's a little blurry. October 21st is right here with the new moon of October 21st. Where is the sun?
Same.
It's actually past Libra. It is now in Scorpio. That means October 21st is the 8th month.
Okay.
So we went, if you are looking back at that calendar, and I went into my 8th month, Scorpio should be in your 8th month. If I go back to my 7th month, see, I ended on October 16th. So I ended correctly. October 21st is too far. It's in Scorpio. So I just determined that October 21st is too far. And it's in my 8th month. Guess what? Those who intercalated, they're a week behind, and their new moon is in Scorpio for 7th month. So it doesn't work out. So if you line up your sun and moon and stars, it actually tells you when your months are. So people who intercalated, they went too far. Too fast. They went too early. So I don't know if that made sense, but when our 7th month, we're looking for Libra and Aries. Libra. So this moon on September 21st was in Libra. This moon was in Aries. Does that make sense? That means I got the dates right for my 7th month. So in my 8th month, my new moon is in Scorpio, which is great. That's exactly what it should be. And then this full moon should be in Taurus, because that is 180 degrees from Scorpio. So that is how I found mine was in the right time frame. If you look at, this is a lunisolar calendar. On September 6th, they have a full moon. Their full moon is in Pisces, but this is their 7th month, so it's not correct. Their new moon is correct for their 7th month, but this one's not. So that means their parameters are messed up. So people who intercalated was also messed up in their calendar. So I'm trying to match the calendar with the moon and the sun and the stars, all of them. And I'm finding that it all matches the Dead Sea Scrolls, Enoch, Jubilees, all of that. And then you had the question about, well, Tina, what about just matching the canon? Not even looking into these other things. A couple of things that I have found. One is the Exodus story about getting the manna. It actually matches the Zadok calendar, and I'm going to show you. So here's another proof text where the Masoretic cannot hide the Zadok calendar, Exodus 16:1. It is the 16th day of the 2nd month. That's what it says in Exodus. People are grumbling, and Yahweh tells Moses that tomorrow will be the 17th, and you will be given manna. Verse 13 says, in the morning they receive manna. Verse 22 says, it was the 6th day, and they were to gather twice as much. Remember, on the 6th day, they have to gather 2 times as much because the Sabbath was going to be the next day. So here's my little chart. On the 16th, they're told by Yahweh, tomorrow you're going to receive manna. So this is the 17th, the first day of manna. The second day of manna is the 18th. The third day of manna is the 19th. The fourth day is the 20th. The fifth day is the 21st. The 6th day, they are told to gather double because tomorrow is a solemn rest, a holy Sabbath. So this is Friday, the 6th day, the day they're supposed to gather twice as much because tomorrow is the Sabbath. So the 7th day is the 23rd of the month. They tell us in Exodus 16, they started this whole thing on the 16th. If you add 7 days, it's a Saturday Sabbath on the 23rd. The 23rd of the 2nd month on the Zadok calendar is always a Sabbath. It never changes. That's the other thing. It is a fixed calendar. The 2nd month, the 23rd day, will always be a Sabbath. We can count on it. We don't have to change our weekdays based on where the moon is. So that was something that I didn't find this. I found this through another gentleman who is also teaching about the Zadok calendar. And when he said that, my husband and I paused the video. We went to look at it and we said, this is so exciting because it only works with our Zadok calendar. It does not work with any other calendar. And the next one is Ezekiel. He kept the Zadokite calendar. In Ezekiel chapter 1, verse 1 through 2, it says, now it came to pass in the 30th year, in the 4th month, in the 5th day of the month, as I was among the captives by the river Kevar, that the heavens were open, and I saw visions of Elohim. In the 5th day of the month, which was the 5th year of King Jehoiakim's captivity. He kept the Zadokite Jubilees calendar because when you read this, it says it came to pass in the 30th year. What 30th year of what? Is Ezekiel 30 years old? The 30th year of what? And it tells us when we look here, this is my Jubilee calendar, and I went to my Jubilees calendar and I looked at when I found Jehoiakim getting captive, held captive. Here is Ezekiel 1 taken place, and it all matched, and it's the 30th year of the 68th Jubilee.
That's amazing.
So he was keeping the Jubilee Zadok calendar exactly, and he was counting. Ezekiel is in captivity. Jehoiakim is in captivity. This I have on here, and I have a video on the Jubilees calendar, and this is just me going through Jubilees, and anytime I found information, I would just plug it into the Jubilee calendar. So I found this verse of Ezekiel just recently, and I went to my Jubilees calendar that I did almost a year ago, and it matched. So Ezekiel was keeping Jubilees. He was keeping the Dead Sea Scrolls calendar. He was keeping the Zadok calendar. So there are hidden manna, hidden gems, crumbs that we have proof that they were keeping all of these things. We just have to put it all together, and it takes all of us to put it all together. But that's what I have for you. So you are welcome to ask me questions, or if you had more.
That's really good.
This is a picture of I have an astronomical clock at home. I bought this one.
Oh, is it?
Yes. I bought this one. It came from Romania. And it keeps the zodiacs, and it keeps the moon phases, and the date, and the time, and the week. And best of all, before I bought it, I asked the clockmaker, and I said, do you keep March 20th as Aries? And he says, yes. And he said, why? And I said, well, people in America are trying to tell us that the equinox now is in Pisces. He said, I've never heard of that. This is a clockmaker from Romania who had never heard of the precession of the equinox or the stars.
They won't have the whole world with their lies. It's not possible.
No.
I don't have any questions, but I propose that after the video, after they go out, if I have some brothers or sisters that have questions, would you accept coming back for another show?
Absolutely.
Maybe?
Yes.
Yeah, that would be good. Great. No, I think it's really our duty to really search into it and to practice as you do, and to make sense of it all with our own observations. It's really so important to do it. We shouldn't give away our power of reading the sky, and nobody should do that for us. It's so important, and this is crucial that we synchronize ourselves on our creator's calendar, and we have to do it by ourselves. We shouldn't lean on any authority to do it, because, I mean, there you go. They lie about cosmology, they lie about time. Daniel 7 told us about it. So now we've understood that we have to keep the law of God, and now we are trying to do our best, and we will manage. And it's about time, because I think time is running out now. I don't know how you feel about it, but end times, as Enoch was talking about, and people are coming back to this truth now in mass, and we're in it.
Yes. Yes, we are.
Thank you so much, sister.
Thank you.
And we keep in touch anyway through comments.
Yes, we will. Thank you for having me.
Eh bien, voici. Merci, chers frères et sœurs, d'avoir écouté jusqu'au bout cette magnifique présentation. Tout cela est d'une importance capitale pour quiconque veut suivre la voie de notre Créateur et sa proposition à marcher dans ses voies, à observer ses moadim. J'espère que toutes ces informations vous feront cheminer, vous feront réfléchir, et puisse cela vous aider à mettre de nouvelles choses en place dans votre vie, mais surtout Puisse Yah continuer de nous insuffler son souffle de vérité, afin que nous puissions voir tous ces cailloux laissés sur le chemin pour que nous revenions vers lui et demeurer dans la paix d'ici la prochaine fois qu'on se retrouve.